Hi, this is Karen McNall, and I'm an independent demonstrator with Stampin' Up. And in today's series, I'm going to show you how you can use up your stash. And what I mean by that is stash that you've had on hand, like me, for a few years and that you haven't used in a while. So I've got this bin full of brads and all different kinds of things that I've probably had for 4 or 5 years. So today we're going to be using these copper brads. So we'll put those aside and we'll get started creating this card. The stamp sets we'll be using today are hardwood, and it's a really large stamp, and also the Amazing You, and this can be earned for free during celebration until March 31st, 2018, and we'll be using the sentiment Celebrate. Alright, so what you'll need for this card, quite a few layers, but it's not too bad. The card base is Early Espresso, and that is cut 8.5 by 5.5 and scored at 4 1/4, which I've done ahead of time. And we'll be working in 1/8 of an inch, so don't get scared about that, because it's really not that hard. Our next layer would be a piece of Very Vanilla, and that's cut 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. We'll set that aside because we don't really need that right now. And our next piece is a piece of soft suede, and this is cut 4 by 5 1/4. And we'll bring in the hardwood stamp set, and we're going to be stamping tone on tone. So I've got my soft suede ink, and I'm just going to take the ink pad to the stamp set, and I'm just going to ink it up really well. And then I'm just going to just put this right on, smack in the middle. Hopefully it's straight. If it's not, it's okay. And I'm just going to bring in a piece of scrap paper so I can just transfer the ink onto the cardstock without getting my hands all ink. So when that's good and set, we'll just lift it up, and there's your tone on tone wood grain effect. So we're done with this stamp set for now, and we'll just assemble those pieces so we have them done. So when I'm working in 1/8 of an inch, I like to use my Tombow liquid glue because it just gives you enough time in case you don't have your layers stuck down accordingly. You have a little time to move it around. So we'll just add our Tombow glue. And then we'll adhere this onto the Very Vanilla. And again, it's just 1/8 of an inch. So I like to grab one corner and then just lay it down and then just secure it in place. And we'll just flip this piece over and add some more Tombow glue. And then we're going to add this to the Early Espresso card base. And again, just 1/8 of an inch on all 4 sides. Okay, that looks pretty good. And for the inside panel, we're just going to take a piece of Very Vanilla, and that's cut 4 by 5 1/4. And we're going to be using the, it's called the Wood Textures Designer Series Pack paper. And I'll bring it in. It looks like this. It's all this wood grain, different types and shades of wood. And I think it's kind of interesting. Makes really good guy cards or masculine cards. So what I did was just take a strip of this, and it's cut. It's a 1/2 inch by 4, and we're just going to glue it down to the bottom. So again, just use your Tombow glue. And then we'll just adhere it to the bottom. And I'm just going to use a little, like 1/8 of an inch on the bottom to just distinguish it from this cardstock. And then I'm just going to run a little bit of adhesive on the top and add it to the card base on the inside. Okay, our next step is to bring in 3 layers. And we will be working with the copper foil, and that's cut 3 1/8 by 3 1/8. And again, the Designer Series paper pack, and this is cut 3 by 3, and then we have a matching piece of vellum which is cut 3 by 3. So what we're going to do first is we're going to emboss using the copper embossing powder. So I've got to bring in my embossing buddy just to take off any kind of fingerprints that's on the vellum. And I'll be using my Versamark ink, and I'll also be using the Celebrate from the Amazing You stamp set. So I'm just going to ink that up and stamp down right in the middle. And just hold it in place for a few seconds so we know that the ink transfers to the vellum, which you really can't see it on camera, but I'll bring it up just in case. You might be able to see it. But when we add the embossing powder on, you'll be able to see it. So I'll bring in my clear copper embossing powder, and since it's just a small area, I'm just going to pour it right on here. I'm not going to worry about it getting on my desk. I don't think that'll happen, but generally you can put down some scrap paper. Okay, so that looks excellent. I'm going to bring in my Stampin' Up! Heat tool, and we're going to heat set this. So if you want, just in case you don't want to burn your hands, or if you have a chance to do that, I've started using some tweezers to do it. So just using the tweezers actually helps you from not burning your fingers. And with vellum, it does emboss very quickly. All right, we're done. That was quick and super fast. Okay, so that piece is done, like I said, and now what we're going to do is we're going to be adding the brads onto the designer series paper. So I have a piercing mat. You can tell I've used it a ton, and I only use it for piercing. I wouldn't want to stamp on this. You could flip it over and stamp on the other side, but I solely use this one for piercing. So I'm going to take my piercing tool, and I'm actually lining these two up. And I'm going to create 2 holes in the corner, one in the left and one in the right, and I'm just eyeballing it. And now I'm going to bring in the stash that we're using for today, that I've had on hand for a while, and I'm just going to just split that brad apart in the back side and turn it so it's not going to show on the outside of the card. Got it fairly close, but I think we're going to be okay. And again, we're going to bring in the other brad, and we're just going to slip it through that hole and open up the back side, split it open, turn it, and then just pinch it down. And that creates that piece. Now, I think it's really cool that you can see the designer series paper through the vellum. If you just flip it up, you can even see it better. So just a kind of cool thing to do. And now what we're going to do is, actually let's just press these brads down really flat. And now we're just going to adhere this with some Tombow glue onto the piece of copper foil. And again, that's 3 1/8 by 3 1/8. And I'm just going to flip this over just so I can press from the back side. Okay, so that looks pretty good. And now we're going to pop this up with just the regular size Stampin' Dimensionals. Again, Stampin' Up! Now carries 2 sizes. These are the regular ones, and they also carry the mini dimensionals as well. So I'm going to add 5 dimensionals to the back side of this piece, and I'm just going to press them down with my fingers so it's easier to take off the backing of the dimensionals. Super quick. All right, so we'll bring in our card again, and we're just going, oops, I forgot one thing. I forgot the copper foil, so unfortunately I haven't cut that yet, so I'm going to do that on the fly. So just bear with me while I get a piece in my Stampin' trimmer. And this is going to be cut 4 inches by 1/2 inch, so I'm just going to cut it this way. and 4 inches. Okay, we're done with that. And we'll bring in our Tombow glue. Just add the Tombow on the back side. I find that their regular adhesive doesn't really work very well with the copper foil, so I've used Tombow throughout this whole card. So I'm just going to eyeball this and make sure the strip is right in the middle, or close to the middle. And now we're going to bring in our front panel. So I'm just going to stand up to do this. Be easier. And then I'm just going to press on all 5 areas where the dimensional is. So there you have it. There's your card. There's the inside, very plain, but that's okay. Adding the piece of paper, the Designer Series paper, adds interest to the inside panel. And this is actually really cool. If I bring it up and maybe you can see it a little bit better, where it's embossed in the copper, and then you can see your Designer Series paper. So hopefully you enjoyed today's card. It's more of a masculine card for today. And for all your Stampin' Up! Needs, please visit my website at inspiredbygraham.com. Thanks for watching and have a great day.